Welcome, Ville Lignell. It is so great to have you here today and talk with you. And
Thanks
so
for
I
having
just
me.
want to jump in right away and just be find out you're in Naples. I love Italy. Italy is one of my favorite countries. So first, why did you pick Italy and then specifically Naples? How did you end up there?
Well, these are two total separate chapters because they actually have nothing to do with each other. Like being Italy and being Naples. Let's say Italy was the plan, and Naples was chapter after chapter after chapter, and then just happened. Sorry, I just closed the window. And it was mid-90s. I moved to Italy in order to have voice training, opera training, and I found my teacher through a friend. And that's when I actually planned to be a couple of years and then moved back to Finland or to another European country for work. And Rome just literally sucked me in, and things went very, very easy in terms of study, in terms of work, because I had to then at certain point my savings went down tubes, and and you had to work. I got into a hotel branch, working in hotel restaurants and caterings, and mostly serving, and some doing some sporadic gigs here and there as a singer. But anyway, it was this kind of practical work that took my time then, and there were some intermediate chapters that I also lived in Israel for 6 years. In meantime, then got back to Italy, the northern Italy this time, and that was in Verona for the opera chorus work in the
Okay.
Arena, some other northern Italian theaters, and I was in Trieste, northeast, for a short time until then I moved to Austria for 6 years. I got that
Wow.
position in the opera chorus and did some solo work too in Linz and Salzburg until I became then decided to be a freelancer, and I found a small home, my first home in Italy in Trieste. Then came the pandemic, and again hotel branch and some other jobs. In meantime, in 2022 was the big change. I was back to Verona, the opera chorus, and that year there was an audition in Naples. I just signed up for the audition. I didn't expect anything, as I had never worked here, and I got hired. And since almost 2 years, I'm in the full time opera course in Teatro di San Carlo in Naples. And as I told you, Rome took me, and then everything was just a subsequent. There was a plan, but with the three dots at the end, everything changed.
Right. I often say when we have a plan, life happens and kind
Yes,
of messes it up. So I try to say
most
I have a
definitely.
guideline.
That's
Right.
how it
And
happened.
so go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you've been in Naples now for about 2 years.
Yes.
Okay. And what are some of your kind of favorite things about living in Naples?
It was a thing, let's say, if perfect match since moment one. I had been to Naples a couple of times, and it was in 1990s, early 2000, but just as a visitor here in Naples and the region. Of course, the city has changed a lot from those times, and as all of Italy is more technological, you don't have to stay in line, to get to the municipality office to get something. You just make online everything. Most things today. So I experienced Naples since day one as some kind of synthesis of the energies of Rome and Tel Aviv. It's
Ah,
Italian city, but it's Naples. You can't say it's Italian. It's Naples, Napoli. But it has this Levantine spice to it. So I felt the energies of both Rome and the chaos of Rome and the chaos of Middle East, and put into this shape of town. And it's a unique thing, but I recognize it immediately. So it was like a easy jump in that sense.
Well, that's good. So it was a pleasant surprise
Yes,
getting that position and now
yes.
living there.
It is a problematic city because there's a lot of poverty. There's a lot of insecurity in the city. Um, the population is very large, and there's housing shortage as in many places in the world, but especially here, as it still is, and kind of as the ancient capital of the Southern Kingdom, it still is a very important knot. And there are many people who come here for work, and there are not uh, houses, and you have to commute from the other cities nearby or just find some solutions.
Yeah, that unfortunately is a problem in many areas right now. And I do hear a lot about, people posting and things of $1 homes and things like that in villages because so many people have been leaving the
Yes,
villages, moving to the bigger cities and places to
yes,
find jobs, which causes problems of the shortage of housing, and there's only so many jobs still, and
yeah.
it does cause some problems.
And then you just touched the €1 house, which is another chapter. It doesn't. It comes with a big, subtext, small
Yes.
print.
Yeah, a lot of people, they don't really read or unaware of that kind of that small print. Because I've semi looked into it, not that I wanted to. I mean, because in theory, at first you're like, a 1 year a house, and oh, great, of course I can fix it up. But the process of renovations is not like in North America, where
Yeah,
you just buy a bunch of supplies you want, you go in and you can do a lot of it yourself if you know
yeah,
how.
that's true. That's
There,
true.
there's many other steps that you have
Many
to
other
go
steps
through
who
to
are
get it
just
done.
practical. Let's say if you end up in a small town in Italy where everything is very tightly built on the top of a hill, just the make the workers to get there, and
Mhm.
it's you can't transport everything. You have to carry them things, and then if you end up in a house that's from 18th century, you can't just plan anything. You have to take the materials, the colors. It has to respect the conservation guidelines of the country. So Italy has this beauty on one hand that you have this all these ancient things and this old centuries old houses. My house is from 1899. But that comes with the downside that you really have to respect those parameters. You can't just enlarge, make another room if there's no space. You
Right.
can't plan anything. You have to stick to that what you have.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't realize that. So there's the paperwork behind it, the things that are allowed or not allowed, and then the physical aspect of getting materials, equipment, finding the workers in that
Yes.
region to do it as well. And it's in theory, it sounds wonderful. Oh, we can get a house for €1 and we have 2 years to renovate, no problem. Eh,
Yeah. Good luck with
people
that.
do it. Now people do it. We're
That's
aware
true.
that
Sure.
they do it, but it's definitely challenging and not simple. And especially as a foreigner. I mean, within European Union, it's a little bit easier because people can stay longer. But if somebody plans to do that and they're from Canada, the United States, being aware that they have to either apply for a visa or can only stay 90 out
The
of every
nines, yeah,
180 days to
right.
try to overlook it or hire people. And it just adds an extra layer of
Yeah,
complication.
yes. The best thing is if you can just stay there and like have an oversight on everything, or that you can do something yourself. That helps the thing, the process. But it is quite it's a torturous road. I was very lucky to as I found my home. It was a difficult thing too, but thanks to my work, I had an access to a mortgage,
Mm.
and I happened to find this place, which is a former B&B, which is
Okay.
another other part of this problem that now as the uh, tourism has had this explosion, especially after the pandemic.
Hmm.
And Naples, which didn't have this kind of tourism that Venice and Rome and Florence have been experiencing since years. In Naples, it's just a new thing, and suddenly everybody is making a B&B somewhere. And people who work, who study, they just have to struggle to find homes. And I was very lucky then after couple of months of search, I found this home, and it was very a good thing.
Well, that's
So I didn't have to just paint it a little thing, and here and there, and finding new furniture, and that's
mhm.
it. But I know it's not that easy. It really is not.
And how are things there with like Airbnb? Are they still allowing it? Do you need a special license? Are they renewing or not renewing? Because it seems that different countries and then even different cities are having different rules about using Airbnb and having it.
True. Like there are let's say there was a period which was quite a kind of gray area that people just made these any way they had a a space, a hole, they just refurbished it and made it to match the standards of a B&B. But the regulations are on the way. And recently in Naples, there were some the police took some action, and they had some controls of some places, and there were big fines given to people who
Okay.
didn't abide to the rules. You have to have the license. You have to uh, announce to the municipality, the police, the guests that are there. You have to submit all the paperwork online or
Okay.
paper, and that's it's just a bigger headache than people thought it could be. It is a good job. It's a good business, but now Italy is becoming more aware. I know in Spain, in the US, in France, they are setting some more guidelines to this, and Italy is
Mhm.
the way to do that too. So it is possible, but it comes with a responsibility that you really have to abide to the rules, abide with the rules.
Right. Yeah, it's one of those things that I think the concept of it initially was made sense. Oh, you have an extra room in your home, you can rent it out, some
Yeah,
people will stay occasionally type thing. And in theory, if that's how it stayed of I have a room in my home, then the problem was then people started to either rent or buy homes just to rent out each room. And then
right.
of course that drives up the prices
Yeah,
of rent and buying homes and then the initial concept, which was good, has turned out to really not be good.
that's true. I remember among all my journeys that I had across Europe for auditions, for example, I remember in France was one or two occasions that really I rented a room, but the landlords were in the house, or also in Italy. But they are the minority of the cases nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So it's more like
Yeah.
a room you find in the box with the number code, and you pick up the key, and
Hmm.
that's what
And
I
there you go. Then you have a room. So it's actually more like they're trying to run a hotel out of a home,
yeah.
right?
I
Is what it's come to.
my house has two of those boxes too downstairs.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
another thing.
It's yeah, it's one of those things that it's a double-edged sword, Really.
Yeah.
I mean, initially, then people can travel more because it's cheaper, but then the cost of everything becomes more
Yes.
expensive.
And nowadays, many of the Airbnbs aren't that cheap anymore. I've
Mm.
seen crazy prices in Naples. Let's say if it's around a big event, there's a football match, or there's a Christmas or
Mhm.
Easter, or just something. There's a long weekend holiday in Italy, and it just fills with tourists. Not only those who come with the from abroad, but Italian tourism is has
Right.
exploded here too. So it's something. It's quite quite astonishing if you look the online prices, and they can just compete with any hotel here.
Wow.
Yeah,
I personally would rather stay in a hotel unless I have an entire, if I'm going to be a few nights or a week or something, and I get an entire apartment
yeah,
because then I cook and stuff. But if not, then I've had issues in the past where I show up and I don't have the local SIM card and the person's not there, and it's just challenges of trying to
yeah.
meet or get the right information. And one time I had a lady, I'm like pushing the buzzer and there's no answer, there's no answer. So I went to next door, there was a shop I could connect to their internet, and she's like, "Oh yeah, there's no water, so you can't stay." I'm like, "I'm
Oh
here
dear.
right now on a Friday night at 8 p.m. Like, what do you
Um,
mean?" So after that, I just thought
where
it's
was this?
this was in Murcia in Spain.
Oh,
Yeah, I did it. I filed a complaint, obviously, and it was a bit of a headache for a bit. And I just thought after that, I just no, I would rather go to a hotel, and that's what I ended up doing. I was at a hotel, and then I walk in, I check in, and everything's nice and it's clean, I would just thought I for occasionally saving some money, the that even if it's only that once in a while that something happens, another time it wasn't even
yeah.
clean. There was still garbage on the in the kitchen. And I'm like, you didn't even clean this place. So after a few bad experiences, I'm like, no more.
Welcome to Southern Europe.
Well, I have not been to Naples yet. I've been to Italy probably I think about 6 times now. Um, but I still have a lot more to see. So basically from south of Rome down. It's I have to really go there and spend some more time there. But I've been throughout Rome and Florence and Lake Como and Milan
Yeah,
and everything. But you know, slowly getting to see more and more. But I absolutely love the just the architecture, the history behind it, and outside the cities, the vineyards and the rolling hills, and it's just so beautiful. And the
yeah,
food and the wine and the people.
yeah. And Italy's so diverse. If you start from as you were in Como, and
Mhm.
you've seen the Alpine part of Italy, and if you go to
Yes.
the heel of the boot in Lecce, in Salento, which is at the tip of the Puglia region, there are landscapes that are very arid, and you really get an idea as if it was in somewhere in Middle East, or in Sicily you have landscapes that are nothing to do with the rest of the country. Veneto, which is very flat, has its own uh, very charming places, and then which doesn't have nothing to do with Liguria. It's so diverse. And just think about Italy has, if I'm not mistaken, 14 minority languages that are protected by the
Wow.
law. So the diversity, which is historical diversity,
Mhm.
populations and languages still being spoken here, and the traditions and the mainland. If you go to Sardinia, which is completely different, it's an own culture, an own language, and it's politically Italian, but it's an own thing. And the mainland has so humongous differences. So you just it takes a lifetime to explore Italy, I would say.
Well, and that's really great to know because I think a lot of people get a, kind of they think that all of Italy is going to be the same. It's Rome, Florence, Milan, and vineyards. And it's because when you watch TV programs
Yeah,
or a lot of things, even with YouTube, where the vast majority of tourists and people are going, so whether they're freelancers or Instagram people, and they're showing they're going to those main cities where the tourism are. And so that's what's kind of perceived as it's kind of what all of Italy is
yeah,
when it's not, and thinking that it's always warm and beautiful and nice, maybe a little hot in the summer, but not realizing places like Florence, it gets cold in winter. Now it's not minus
it,
20, 30 degrees Celsius like Canada, but it's still cold and you need a warm
yeah,
winter jacket and there are places, and then as you said, close up into the north with the mountains, there's going to be snow.
yeah. Let's say the higher up you go, the colder it gets. In Calabria, which is the this like southwards from Naples, there are
Mhm.
skiing resorts there because there are
Wow.
mountains, and you go.
Mhm.
You can find ski resorts nearby Rome, or then you have all the mountain ranges, Abruzzo, all the alpine areas. You just can go skiing there. It's just regular. And I remember my first winter here was the winter 22-3. And I had to buy a thick winter coat because of the wind and humidity.
Mhm.
I didn't expect it. Although I was living in Trieste, which is a colder place and a lot of wind there. But every place has the kind of climate. Naples has problems with humidity or humidity from the ground. So that's a challenge when you pick up a place where to live. But anyway, let's say if you move to a foreign country, it takes 1.5 years, if I'm not mistaken, that your body gets used to that temperature, the climate. And I see myself, the temperature dropping to 20 Celsius, and I'm already with a jacket. And I see all
Oh
the
my, I
visitors
do
are
that too
in
now.
shorts and t-shirt, and I get to the shade, and there's a bit wind, and I'm covering myself because suddenly I feel that warm. That let's say I was in Finland to see my parents in summer, and when it was 22 degrees, it was like pleasant, but it's still bit fresh for me.
Hmm.
And especially if I'm here, I feel it in my bones that the 22, 20 degrees, it's like borderline chilly
Hmm.
due to the
It's that
contact.
humidity. That
Yeah.
humidity makes such a big difference because my home city in Canada is Calgary and it's very dry. So even when it gets hot, 30, 35, like that's very hot for Calgary, but I'm like, okay, it's hot, but it's okay. But if I'm in Barcelona and it hits 35 and with the humidity, it's like really hot. And then the same with the opposite. I have a place in Montenegro and I'm along the coast. So it doesn't go below 10 degrees Celsius, but it's 10. And with a little bit of wind and the humidity, I feel really, really cold. And I'll say to my friends, oh, it's so cold. They'll be like, what's the temperature? And I'll say, oh, it's like 10 degrees Celsius. And they start
Yeah.
laughing because they're like, that's not cold. And I said, well, 10 degrees Canada. I mean, I would still be cold, but it's that humidity. And as you said, it gets into your bones. Like it
That's
is very different.
I remember in Israel, in Tel Aviv, which is on the coast, and it's very humid there too. One winter it was plus 4 degrees, and I think I'm freezing to death because then in the Middle Eastern countries you don't have heating. The houses are not heated.
Oh, yeah.
Winter is so short and it's so insignificant.
Mhm.
So you don't get heating unless you have your inverter that just blows hot air into your house. But anyway, the temperature in Mediterranean countries in the winter can be, let's say, warmer outside than inside indoors. If you get to ready for going to sleep, very often you dress up for sleeping, not for going out.
Mhm.
So
Right. And I'm
good
glad that
and bad.
you said that because my place in Montenegro, there's no central heating in it. My first place when I was living in Barcelona, no heating in it. And you're right. I noticed then that there were times I'd be like, oh, it's so cold. And so I'm getting all dressed up and layered up and I'm going to go to a co-working place. And as soon as I walk outside, it's like, oh, it's warmer out here than it is inside the apartment. This is crazy. But
I
it's
know that
very
feeling.
common.
Yeah, I know the feeling. It's just, it's the truth.
And so that definitely for people who are considering moving either Italy, Spain, I mean any kind of European country or city that they might want to take into consideration, it's not always nice, warm, and beautiful. There is winter, and maybe even temperature wise, it doesn't seem like it's a cold temperature, but it can be cooler inside, and that
Yes.
humidity can make a difference. And the opposite too. In the summertime, it can get really, really hot. I don't know about Naples, but I had a friend of mine last year it was summer and he's in Florence and was saying that it got to like 42 degrees Celsius or something. It was like that's really, really hot.
That's really hot. Naples has the plus side that the city has quite, um, there's a lot of air, there's a lot of wind here. So
Okay.
it's very seldom, it's just in a couple of corners of the city where you really are stuck in this heat. It's a humongous heat, and nothing is moving. The air is not moving.
Mm,
It's due to buildings around you, or there's some kind of hill or something that impedes the flow of air. But usually, the city gets quite lot of wind,
okay.
and it
Great for
makes
the
it more
summer,
bearable.
not so much for the winter.
Yeah, in the winter it can be quite extreme when it really goes to uh, temperatures below 10 degrees, and then you have this humid wind. It's quite unpleasant. And the plus side of this area is that Campania, the region, really hasn't experienced such drought that, for example, Sicily has. Even the Romans used to say Felix Campania, meaning that this area has this kind of microclimates because there are like hills around the
Mm,
Great Plains of uh, um, Naples, Caserta, and the nearby cities. And that means that there is always some kind of the basic amount of rainfall that comes to these areas, and there's always something lush. There's always something growing. So we don't have these problems like in Palermo, the
mm.
northern side of Sicily. And it's a good region in that sense that we do have the air, we do have the waters, we have plenty. See, and that's since ancient times documented. So
Wow.
I'm I'm in a good place, let's say.
Oh, it sounds great. So with homes, we know that it's tough to find a place to rent and to live right now. Do a lot of them not have central heating and not have air conditioning, or have a good portion of them been upgraded to have those things?
Many places have been upgraded. They do have this air conditioning this device that
Mhm.
also makes the heating in the wintertime if you need it.
Okay.
I used to live in a preposterous place for a half a year. I didn't have it, but on the other side, I didn't need it because it was anyway in a shady place, and I didn't have such a problem with heat. So just a simple ventilator was good. But most places, even the, let's say, not the most fortunate ones, do usually have some kind of device that gives you the heat or the heat and the cooling.
Okay. And what about driving there? Most times people think the train system throughout Europe generally is quite good, especially when we compare it to North America, which is
Yeah.
pretty much non-existent.
Yeah.
Um, the cost of vehicles, do you find is it generally worth it? Would you need one in Naples, or do you find for the most part you can get away without it and just rent one if you wanted to do weekend or week-long trips?
Well, that's definitely what I do. I've lived in cities most of my expat time in these countries, and modern cities are let's say not modern cities because there's not a modern one. It's the cities today are not made for the amount of cars and the size of cars. Because I've
Mhm.
seen parking houses, parking lots in Naples that you really have to try to fit your car into it because the cars are like leavened. They're bigger than 1960s, 70s when many of the streets were built or the parking lots were built. So I never had a car in any of the countries where I've lived, and I always rented a car. It's fairly affordable in Italy. You just have to be take some cautions with the companies. They might try to present that there are some damages done to the car which aren't caused by you. So you have to be extra cautious and have the photos before and after and everything. But it's doable and it's affordable. Driving is quite wild for most Europeans who come to Italy. I think I haven't been to Spain, but I think it's not very northern driving either. So the basic thing is that you just go with the flow. Just leave
Mhm.
your expectations of um, the kind of behavior and traffic in Scandinavian countries. Just put it on the back and just go and do what everything's doing. And don't care if somebody just cuts through the road and don't respect your precedents. So don't get mad. Just go with the
Right.
flow. That's how it works. And Naples has quite wild traffic, but the Neapolitans are very good drivers.
Okay.
Sometimes you see in some quarters these miners who are on the mopeds, the motorcycles, with no
Hmm.
helmets on. They just drive like crazy. But that's how they get trained. Many of them get trained this way. They're very good drivers. So you can't see that many accidents here at all. But if you drive here, you have to do it like everybody else. And I see a difference between Rome and Naples. Rome gets very often very nervous traffic and it gets stuck, whereas Naples has this fluidity and it goes somehow forward. So just keep your eyes open and take every place as it is.
Right, right. Well, I'm the same. I like the places where I don't have to drive. Every time I go back to Canada, I'm driving in Canada, but it's completely different. But that's one of the things that I love about Europe are just the walkability, the local bikes that a lot of cities have that you can rent. And then if I need to rent a car to drive somewhere if it's a place where I can't get to by the train system, which there's a few places, but it's not too often. The trains go pretty much everywhere, except for sometimes those small rural places. But
Yeah,
then
yeah,
it's nice to rent a car because for me, I figure by the time it's the purchase of the car, the insurance, the maintenance, parking, everything else. I usually like to live fairly central so I can just walk to everything I need and I enjoy walking. It's one of the things that I love about living in Europe is living in those places where it is walkable to go to everything that I need to go to.
That's true. And I'm European, so I'm kind of used to that. Although, let's say Finland and Canada do have some similarities in terms of
Mm,
climate, but also the space is Finnish countryside and even cities are very large. The distances are very long. There are big spaces and there are lots of green, and you really do need a car in most places.
mm,
And even the cities, you would really have to be ready to rely on the public transportation and live with it. So let's say in Italy, in Naples, if somebody came to live here and had struggles to find a place where to live, to rent a house or buy a house, you can commute from the nearby cities, let's say Caserta or Avellino, which are like in a relatively fair distance, and there are trains. The train service is very good. You can just jump on a train and you are in Naples in half an hour. And
that's
I do
nice.
have colleagues who commute from a long distance to Naples. It's doable. Obviously, there are problems if there's a strike or there's an accident or something on the highway. That's well, that can happen anywhere.
Right.
But let's say there's one Euro houses, by the way, very often have the downside that they are nowhere close a rail track. Or if they have,
Mm,
you have to see if the hill is here, if there's transportation, if the train station is down the hill, how many hundreds of meters or how many kilometers do you have to go commute down up and down the hill in order to get to your home
right.
from the train?
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's really the thing when we if we touch back the issue of the 1 euro houses is that they are not very easily reachable. So you will depend on a car.
It
But
definitely is
there
a
are,
commitment.
yes, it is a
Yeah.
commitment. It is a country, is an ancient reality, but the terrain, the landscape is very young, as we have three volcanoes here in the area of
Hmm.
Naples. In Sicily, there are three volcanoes there too, one submarine volcano in between. And so we do have this seismic activity. There are some earthquakes. Some
Okay.
areas of Italy are known to be very vulnerable, they have frequently earthquakes. And some of these affordable properties that you can find online are in those areas. So you really have to check before you move somewhere that what the history of that place is in terms of the seismic activity.
Yeah, oh, in Canada where I lived anyway, we never had earthquakes. Sometimes the West Coast area, Vancouver would, but I lived in Costa Rica for years and experienced earthquakes living there. And I quickly realized I do not like earthquakes. I do not like living in a place like, and I know you never know. Like if they're little ones, okay, but oh, I just that whole unknown, there's no control. It happens so fast. I don't really, for me anyway, wouldn't want to live in a place that has is known to have earthquakes and large ones. And I guess it's kind of, we have to think like I say pick your poison, whether it's earthquakes, winter weather,
Yeah,
hurricanes, like tornadoes, like all, those potentials. And then
yeah,
of course there's the unknowns of rains and flooding that has happened in recent years that have never happened in places before. So
yeah.
we can't always predict, but I those are the things that I kind of think of when I'm looking if I'm going to be moving somewhere and where it's at, of all of those types of nature issues, and that helps kind of steer my decision as to where to go.
Right, right. So I have recently posted myself too on social media spectacular photos of Mount Etna erupting.
Oh, yes.
Recently there were these lava just squirting out, and then there were some photos of the three main craters emitting something simultaneously, which is spectacular. But then you have the photos of people in Catania who have like 1 centimeter of their volcanic ash on there to scoop from the from the balcony. So you can enjoy the thing, but then you take the ashes too.
Hmm. Well, and then too, then there's kind of the effects that, and I don't know that region very well, but if there's any farmland around there and animals and things like that has again a negative side effect if you have your garden and your local food. Now you're kind of digging it out if you even can. If it's a large farm, then that crop could be just ended for the season or the year.
Yes, let's say in the case of Mount Etna, there are three areas. There, the A zone where people live, and there's the B zone where the farmers have the lands and they can go there and make the cultivation. Then there's a C zone, which is the forbidden, the danger
Okay.
zone where you just go with
Mhm.
a guide. But of course you can't predict anything. And let's say if
No.
you have trees, something growing on the slopes of the mountain slopes, it's doable. But let's say you wouldn't uh, plant crops where there possibly is some lava, some ashes coming down. So
Mm,
you would plan it. But on the other hand, human being in these areas has been coexisting with volcanoes since aeons. So
that's right.
whether it's now or whether it was 100 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, people always have coped with that. And
Hmm.
if you choose to live here, then you just become one of the place and you take it as it is.
Right.
That's the part of your integration if you come here or any place whatsoever. You take the whole package and you live with that. You can't escape it. You adapt to it, and that's your choice.
That's the
Otherwise,
life.
you
That's
yeah,
Yeah, that's true. And that's why also too, it's important for people to research ahead of time and
right,
see this is what the weather's like. These are the potential, whether that's volcano, earthquake, hurricane, tornado, whatever those things may be. This is kind of politically what this area is like. This is religiously what this area is like. This is and to look at all of those kind of factors because as you just said, when you move somewhere, we are going to integrate into there, not to move and expect there to be any type of change. So, of course, there's no perfect place. Not every
right,
place is going to have some types of things that we find annoying or would do differently, but that's part of life. But it is looking at that because to make that move, you want it to be the right move for you, the best move, and to integrate and really enjoy life. And I've seen people move and 6 months later, they're like, no, we don't like it here. We're leaving. And they've already left their home country, sold all their stuff, bought things, moved in 6 months,
right.
sometimes a year, and then they're no, we're selling everything. We're moving back. And sometimes I question that. I'm like, why move back? Maybe this just wasn't the right city. Could be because from city to city is very different. Or maybe just not quite the right country, but that's why it's always good to do research, to visit a
Yeah,
country, to visit a city, to be there. And especially if you're moving with family. Like for me, it's a bit different because it's just me. So I can, if I move and relocate and I find that I don't really like it, then it's a lot easier for me to move than it is if I'm moving with somebody and have kids and things like
right,
that.
right.
But there's still an expense in time. And so I always say to people, go check out places first and check out a few different cities or regions and get a
Yeah,
feel for that local energy because it is different in different
yeah.
regions.
And you really have to um, trust your gut feelings. I do have some kind of scanner in my around my my central body that I like the place or I don't like it. There's no middle way.
Mm.
I remember arriving to the place where I used to live in Austria, and I felt I will not be here forever. It was just that was not my energy. Uh, Whereas Italy has been kind of yes, a big yes since day one, or kind of knowing that you'll be here, no matter how difficult it has been difficult for me for many years, and you have the these uncertainties, and you struggle from paycheck to paycheck, which is the reality for most people in the arts community, the artists anyway, anywhere. So that
Yes.
I was living the life of an artist to full extent. But then when things settle down, and since I'm having this existence in a more permanent way in one place, then it's a difference. And suddenly you realize even funny things, funny feelings that did I deserve this? Because there had been so many uncertainties, and this looking for something and going to the next place and finding a good one and not the right one, and then you suddenly are in a place when everything is set, and you think, what happened? Why isn't it like before?
Yeah, it's too good. Or
Yeah,
there's
it's too
or
big,
the
too.
opposite.
Yeah. So anywhere you go, um, it has the up and down sides, and you really the first word that comes into my mind is commitment. If you go to another country or to another city, trust the gut feelings and then commit yourself to it, because
Mhm.
you have to remember, unless you go in a big family, humongous, all your cousins and all your aunts and aunties, they all and uncles move together. You could say, okay, you have brought your life to another place, but that's
Mhm.
not the existence for most of us. So we do go like me or you, we go by ourselves, and we create the reality, and we have to fit in with
Yes.
no excuses. So there is some kind of act of annulling a part of you, or at least of your expectations. So you
Yes.
bring your baggage, you have your luggage with you, and your cultural heritage and everything. But then some of that has to stay in the background, because you have to adapt to the new ways. You have to uh, find your way to integrate, and you are committed to that if you want to stay there. So actually, there were many moments where when I could have just abandoned Italy or wherever I was living, and I could have looked for something else. But then there was, on many occasions, there was something that kept me there, and then you survived. 2 days later, everything looked a bit different, and then 2 weeks later, it was different. And
Hmm.
so you just go with the flow, go with your feeling, but go also with the commitment. And
And I think too that people need to realize that, even in your home country, we go through challenges. We go
oh,
through tough times. They may be different types of challenges because being in a different country, of course, we're going to have those different things. But things happen in our home countries too that are challenges and problems and issues directly to us or with our close friends and family that indirectly affect
right.
us as well. And so yeah, it's having that commitment. This is where I'm going to be. This is what I'm doing, and know that there's going to be my first time moving abroad. I moved to Costa Rica, and now I don't even remember now exactly what things were, but I remember saying to somebody, I'm like, there was this thing, and then this thing, and then this thing, and then this thing, and I'm not sure if this is the universe telling me I'm not supposed to be here, or if this is the universe saying, how bad do you want it? And I'm like, I'm not sure which way I'm supposed to be going. I'm still here. I'm sticking to it. And I'm like, is it just testing me to see and then it's going to be great? Or is all
Right.
of these things saying it's not right? And I just kind of stuck through because none of them was, huge or enormous, but they were each one was like, okay, but then okay, and then really, and then and again, now what?
Yeah.
Um, and it happened for a while, but then it passed and it was great. And I'm obviously it was many years ago now, and I don't even remember what those things were. So they passed, and it was nothing horrible. And part of it, I think, was just a little bit of a test to be life's not easy. How bad you want it, you know? But
Yeah.
I'm glad those things happened because I've now lived in different countries, and each time I move to a new country, I think, oh, okay, I'm prepared for this. I'm prepared for
Yeah.
all the excitement. It's great. And then after about 6 months, usually I think, did I do the right thing? Because when I move, I don't know anybody. I don't speak the language. Like I just do it in probably the hardest possible way. And then, but I know the process. And so I'm like, nope, part of the process. This is just part of the process. And
Right.
things,
Right.
have challenges and always.
And I'm sure you've gathered a kind of package of wisdom of life in all these
Mm.
paths. You've seen so much.
Yeah, yeah, it's been
I'm
incredible.
feeling,
One of the biggest things that I found with all my travels and everything that I've done is there really no opinion matters. And no opinion is right or wrong and there's no real thing to a certain degree as truth. And
right.
because especially when I think of travel and culture in different places, because my truth and the things that I believe and I think are true are only because of my perspective. And they are only because of I grew up in Canada, so I have certain beliefs and I have certain experiences from that, whether it's from my teachers, my parents living in Canada, as opposed to somebody who grew up in India or China or somewhere else. And they can have a completely different belief or thought on something. It doesn't even have to be religion or politics. It could be just something very simple.
Yeah.
And it's just because their experience. And I'm not right, but I'm not wrong. I'm right to me because it was my experience and that's why I have the belief. And I've been lucky to have conversations with people that have the completely opposite belief in certain things. And in the end, saying, you know what? I understand why you believe that. And if I had your experience, I would believe exactly what you believe as well. But
Right.
because this has been my experience, this is my belief. And if more people, I think, were open to realizing our opinions, our thoughts, and beliefs, and if you can ever answer the question, why do you think that? Without saying, because it's true, because it's the way it is, because like those aren't answers. But if people can actually say, well, I believe this because I think the
I
world would
grew
do
with it, rep with it.
better.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's true.
And with travel, I think more people who travel and not to just tourist travel, but travel and
Travel.
live or
Yeah.
spend time and
Yeah.
be open to those cultures with feet on the ground, living it and seeing it. The more open people are, the more empathy they have, the more that we realize that my opinion is just mine because of my life, and it's not right and it's not wrong.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that's something I used to say that the day, some one day in the future when I will leave this earth, probably I won't be rich, but I will be grateful that I've lived. And I've
Mm.
seen, I've met people, and that's the greatest richness. I think even if you go to a place where you don't seemingly fit in, but if you go there with the commitment that you want to be there and you want to be part of the texture of that life and that mosaics, of
Mhm.
everything, you will attract those people who are the most appropriate for your growth. you will attract them. And they will just bump in, and of course you have to learn, the how to distinguish between true and not so true. But
Hmm.
I've seen everywhere where I've gone that there really are those planets that just start to hover around you, and you form your circles, you form your bubbles, your safe spaces, and despite the challenges, you go forward, and you make,
Absolutely.
the painting of your life.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of things that I say. And some is, even if you live till you're 100 years old, if you're happy and enjoying life, that 100 years goes by so fast. But if you are miserable and you are hating life and it's terrible, that's a long 100 years. And
That
I
is
would rather enjoy it and make the best of it. We all have challenges along the way. Absolutely. But
yes,
it's how we respond to or deal with those challenges, because the bad times will pass and the good times will pass as well. It's
right.
always it's hopefully not peaks and mountain peaks and valleys, because those are extremes. But if we have life that's more of rolling hills, so we appreciate the ups and the good times, and we grow when we have those challenges and struggles, but we don't get stuck on them because we know
Yeah,
in time it will pass. We have to do things to
right.
make them pass and to get past it. Um, but I also think we have to kind of, in a ways, redefine success. And a lot of people know success isn't based on money and fame, and fortune, because if that was the case, all the rich, famous people in the world would be happy. Instead, a lot of them are upset, miserable,
Absolutely not happy.
alcoholics, drug addicts. Like,
Yeah,
so it's
that's
finding
sad.
true
It's sad.
happiness. It's what makes you happy. And there is always a sacrifice. This thing of a balanced life. I think of a teeter-totter. It is, but it moves. It's never like a 50-50. There are times in our life where it's 30-70, 60-40, and it's moving in this kind of balanced way, that people need to realize. And it is about experiences. When people have talked to people who are going to be dying soon and in palliative care and things, it's never, oh, I remember that Gucci purse. Oh, that car that I
No.
had. It's experiences. Maybe it was an experience in the car, that road trip that you went on. Okay, I go with that. But it's
It's
those
people doing that.
experiences, and that's what life is. It's experience. And the more we experience, the more fulfilling our life is.
It's true. I just read an article about nurse in Finland who's in the palliative care,
Hmm.
and she saw so many different people who just passed, stayed there just between 5 days, 2 weeks, and she remembers a 26 years old girl who just passed away, and she was so happy because she had traveled, and there was a 96 years old lady who was so bitter because she had never had lived for herself.
Mm,
So
yeah.
it's all relative in the way that you how you live your life, and what your priorities are, where you uh, whether you learn to love yourself,
Yes.
and that which implies that you also give yourself time. You take yourself time, and you
Hmm.
require, the circumstances of life and everything around you that they permit you to love yourself. Yeah.
Right. Right.
So in that
So
way,
with
Italy
mhm.
has been a good school for me.
Yeah, wow. Italy is amazing. It is definitely one of my favorite countries. And I remember my mom has asked me several times before, are you going to move to Italy? Are you going to? And I said, no. I said, I can't. And she said, why? And I said, because I love it so much. I have Italy on a pedestal. It's way up here that it's just like amazing and perfect. And I love every time I go there. I absolutely love it. And I said, and I'm worried if I lived there, I would start to see some flaws and some cracks and some things. And I don't want to do that. I want to keep it in my pedestal where I love it and I visit and I enjoy it. But I do have a friend that's like, we should get a place in Italy. We don't have to like just part time and maybe, and I'm like, I'm not living full
Eventually,
time. Don't want to be full time.
you start to see how fascinating some of those cracks can be.
That's a perspective that I need to consider then.
Because they're part of the same fabric.
Yes, it's true. It's true. It's absolutely an amazing country, and I absolutely love it. Well,
That's
I
great.
just want to say thank you very much for your
Thank
time.
you.
I really appreciate it. I loved the conversation. I hope everybody listening and
Likewise, thank
watching
you.
also enjoyed it.
Thanks
Lots
for
of
having
valuable
me.
information, some tips that I didn't even know, even though I love it. And I absolutely need to get back soon and start checking out a little bit more of the southern parts. And by that I mean south of Rome. Uh, and seeing more of it because it's amazing. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.